Hey there, it's Prince of Queens, and today I'm going to be going over 9 types of SJWs to know about and vaguely how they think. Number 1, the rich young black person. Jonathan Butler of the Mizzou protests, who went on a hunger strike after jumping in front of the university president's car, claiming he was the victim of a hit and run, is probably the best example of this type of person. Jonathan Butler is the son of a railroad executive who is worth several millions of dollars. In 2014, his father earned more than $8.4 million alone. I have met several of these types of people in real life, and I think they tend to have a few things in common. For one, growing up, they usually tended to have friends that were largely not black, even though they're black themselves. One prior SJW friend of mine said that at her school growing up, there were only about 15 other black students, and they all thought she was snobby. It is only when these students get to college and they have to make new friends do they start getting into talking about their skin color or ethnicity all the time, which obviously isn't difficult to do in our current social climate. Furthermore, I think that these people usually find other upper to middle class, wealthy students to surround themselves with that also happen to be black, further validating their struggles as a black person without having to discuss their relative privilege as well to do financially. If they were to talk to the average, less financially well off black student, the poorer student would probably call them on their bullshit as a rich kid. So these people have a vested interest in making absolutely everything about race instead of making it about more nuanced issues like class. These people are also probably relatively mediocre at whatever they do, which is why their own particular victim of society narrative is so incredibly appealing, as they get to fall back on racism as an excuse. These are also probably the types of people that advocate for segregated dorms. It's not so much the actual racial microaggressions that bother them like they claim, but I imagine they want to insulate themselves from anybody who might challenge their worldview of believing they are horribly oppressed, even though they're basically just a rich kid. Number 2, the trans trender. This is one I've talked about in my video called Trans Trenders and Bisexuals, so I won't get too deep into it. The main thing about these people is that they pretend to be trans in order to score oppression points, so that their opinions are supposedly more valid in their social spheres, and so people accept them more in the safe spaces. They never physically transition and usually say they are non-binary, and it will only last as long as being a victim is seen as virtuous, which I am guessing is coming to a close pretty soon. Most trans trenders are cisgender women, many of whom are straight and upper middle class, very often white. Without this imaginary identity as a non-binary person, they would be a nobody in SJW land. Though it should be of note that they do everything they can to hang on to their female privileges whenever possible, while simultaneously pretending not to be female. They'll accuse people who argue with them on the internet of threats and harassment, as if any dude could get away with such tattletaling. Many homosexual female transgenders don't want to be men at all. They just want to be the ultimate lesbian. Number 3, the virtue signaling white gay guy. I also talk about this one a bit in another video, but I want to make it clear that this is a very particular phenomenon with white gay men. Since fourth wave intersectional feminist SJWs have made a very deliberate attempt to exclude gay men from the category of an oppressed minority, and have even gone so far as to say that gay men are even more misogynistic than straight men, especially white gay men, according to liars like Kat Black, who I am fairly convinced don't have any contact with the gay male community besides what shows up in her comment section. There are now countless white gay guys who constantly post SJW articles and publicly pledge their allegiance to various causes that they will never be completely included into, like Black Lives Matter and feminism. These people are under the impression that if they post about these things constantly, nobody will know the truth about them. Which is that they are overcompensating because they are deeply afraid that maybe they're kind of bigots, and maybe everybody will know. Number 4, the male feminist misogynist. I have come to the conclusion that a lot of male feminists are misogynists, or at least have deep-seated issues with women. I mean, think about it. Who else would date feminists and subject themselves to constant emotional abuse about how awful and lacking of respect for women men are, besides a man who legitimately is kind of awful and doesn't respect women? Perhaps by dating and hanging around with feminists, he is trying to repent for his sins. That, or he is just aware that feminists are fairly easy to hook up with as long as he tells them what they want to hear and plays all sensitive. For all of these reasons, female feminists actually kind of hate male feminists, which is why they talk about it regularly. Like, do a Google search about how much female feminists like male feminists. They don't like them a whole bunch. So, if you haven't figured it out yet, the obvious conclusion is to not be a male feminist. Number 5, the Asian or Latino opportunist. These people annoy me particularly because I am fairly certain they know they are taking everybody else for a ride. These people use their status as people of color to get blog writing gigs, grants, and other such perks within reality, and they always end up seeming to overemphasize their supposed oppression as a person of color. These are the people who never stop talking about the fact that they aren't white, or if they are mixed, they go on and on about how incredibly difficult it is to be mixed. One time, this girl who looked like she was half white and half Asian tried to publicly call me out because I used the term non-white, which somehow in her twisted little imagination was more offensive than saying person of color, which is kind of like one molecule away from saying colored. The deep psychology of these people is very simple. They see that they have a lot to gain from social justice culture, and they milk it for all that it is worth. Number 6, the white feminist who calls herself intersectional. Has anybody ever explained to you that all feminism these days benefits only 3 groups of people in the long run? White women, politicians, and celebrities. Well, it's true, and I think maybe the feminist establishment is aware that people have caught on, which is why they've been trying to push this narrative of intersectionality, which is basically just code word for a feminist who wants everybody to like her and is claiming that she sticks up for all forms of oppression, which is usually a complete lie. All intersectionality is to 99% of feminists is a nifty label to make it sound like they care about different types of people when really they only care about themselves being liked. Basically, if somebody has to bother to call themselves an intersectional feminist, they aren't to be trusted. I'd prefer somebody without labels who simply tries to be a decent person, honestly. Number 7, the media personality that is afraid for their career. Half of the people out there who work in media or are famous in any way know damned well that they have to do and say certain things, or they could easily get mobbed by SJWs online. These people are particularly annoying because I suspect that they know damned well that they are full of shit when they virtue signal or even continue to actually write full-blown social justice articles. But they feel that they have no other option or their careers would be over. What I am wondering is what is going to happen if Trump wins and he does everything he can in his power to obliterate the fourth wave feminist SJW movement. Do these people think their careers will be better off? If I were getting paid by a company to write about current social issues, I'd probably just avoid talking about such things if that's actually possible. Number 8, the legitimately oppressed person who is just an asshole. I occasionally come across these people online, and I have to wonder if they have any real friends in actual life. One I talked to recently was chewing out absolutely everybody they ever talked to because everybody is more privileged than them. And I can see the case to be made for that. They were Mexican and pretty dark-skinned, really ugly for whatever that's worth, and so poor that although they had been diagnosed with gender dysphoria and they had already had top surgery, they had to go off hormones about a half of a year ago or so. They were a trans guy. Now, I would normally feel bad for this person, but they were just a mind-blowing piece of shit. Like, absolutely every post they made seemed to be designed to make whomever they were talking to suffer just a little bit, based purely out of vengeance, it would seem. There is no reasoning with these people. Avoid them at all costs. Number 9, the straight female feminist LGBTQ infiltrator. These are my least favorite people in SJW land because their entire social life is often based on a lie, and I really hate liars. They start hanging around gay guys in particular as their primary friend group, and they try to suck up really hard, trying to be super nice as if they care about the oppression of gay men. Then eventually they start demanding special treatment and try to convince gay men that they need to be feminists for some reason. After they already have been welcomed into the community, they start lying and saying gay men aren't treating them well enough, when usually we were being nicer than these women probably deserved. And then they say we are part of the patriarchy. Many men don't want to be attacked and seen as a bad guy, so they let these women get away with it. Finally, they begin to start trying to have sex with gay men, but usually, in particular, femme guys. It's rather weird. I am planning on making an entire video about these women, but my theory about them is that they have abuse issues from men but are still totally heterosexual, even though they might deny it. Somehow, in their pathological mind, they begin feeling attracted to femme gay guys because they are the least threatening men out there. They know for certain that these are the least likely guys to ever try to take advantage of them sexually in the entire universe, which makes them feel safe. Except deep down, these women want the femme guys to fuck them. It's really kind of weird and totally awful, so stay far, far away. It's manipulative and just kind of psycho. These are these women's issues, and you should never cater to their bullshit. Alright, that's the 9 different types of SJWs that I have for today. Drop me a like and subscribe to my channel. Thanks.